All right, so hopefully this works. So I'm going to read the script. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, the Young Adults Advisory Council's Subcommittee on Urban Planning and Transportation needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit of a cumbersome process, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of the subcommittee is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each subcommittee member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. So first, I will start with myself, Casey Judge, climbing from Falls Church, Virginia.
I can hear you just fine, Casey.
Excellent. And then Sarah, if you'd like to introduce yourself and say where you're calling from.
I'm Sarah Bufano. I'm actually currently in Manassas, but I live in Fairfax.
Excellent. So at this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to one of my subcommittee members, Sarah, so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. Here's the gavel. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of the subcommittee.
I second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the subcommittee to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the subcommittee and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the subcommittee may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated video and audio conferencing line, and that the public may access this meeting by registering through the meeting link on the Fairfax County Public Meeting Calendar at https://www.fairfaxcounty.gov/calendar/showcalendar.aspx, or by calling 1-844-621-3956 and entering access code 129-785-2362. It is so moved. You want to second the motion?
Oh, I second the motion.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. And finally, it is next required that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda must address the emergency itself, are necessary for continuity in Fairfax County government, and or are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of the subcommittee's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Excellent.
I don't think we need to take a vote on that. So at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. We have not received any written comments in advance. We have not had anyone sign up in advance to speak. I will ask if there are any individuals on the line, and seeing none, let's go ahead and move into our business. So essentially today, it looks like what we want to focus on, and we'll loop Denver in the next meeting to make sure that we all have the same goals and objectives for this subcommittee. But essentially, there's some scoping questions that have been provided to each of the subcommittees. So I figured I could share my screen and we could walk through each of the scoping questions first and, kind of see where we land on them, come up with some goals for our subcommittee, and then we can talk about any other items and other business items that affect the subcommittee. Does that work for you, Sarah?
Sounds good.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen and then I will just take some notes. And then hopefully Graham can distribute these to Denver after the fact. So can you see this okay, or do you need me to zoom in?
I can see it just fine. Thank you.
Great. All right. So the first scoping question is, how do urban planning and transportation, let's say, how does urban planning and transportation affect young adults? Why should we focus on these topics?
That is I feel like that's a pretty big question, isn't it?
It's a very big, broad, universal kind of big ticket question, I feel like. Probably
Yeah.
many answers.
I feel like it affects where people want to live, because of, access to things, whether it be, getting around, work, pleasure, etc. People, I mean, it connects people, kind of gives them a sense of community. And then I think it's also very much about lifestyle too. I mean, I think so far we've seen that young people gravitate towards cities, biking, walking, public transit, uh, having things close by. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I think that's why a lot of choose this area, especially compared to other parts of Virginia, even, if you look at other areas like in the Hampton Roads area, or, Roanoke or Richmond, there's not a lot of that public transportation aspect. So I know when I was looking where I wanted to live and work after college, I really loved the accessibility. I think that people also, because I'm going to type this, I'm going to try and multitask, because we spend so much time commuting each day. You really want to find a place that has something that's reasonable. Like if you're going to have an extra hour at home each day instead of, it's worth save the time, or get work done when you're taking public transit, like trying to balance what you want from your work-life balance, I guess.
Yeah. And I think, you just said accessibility, and I think, writing that down is helpful.
Yeah.
I wonder, this is, I guess, a question. I mean, being in Northern Virginia, we're so close to DC. So is there anything, I guess, if you're thinking of like a local hub, like obviously Fairfax is like a local hub, right? And people like have, their grocery store and like their own things in Fairfax. But I think if you take it up a level, like you've got like the DC metro area. So, making sure that Fairfax County kind of takes advantage of its location. And, there's so many young people that move to the DC area. And Fairfax County could easily, become, if it wanted to, a really attractive place based on, transportation accessibility and the things we talked about.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think the other thing too, and I may state this and then try and type because I can't do two things at once. But based on the location, it is not as affordable of a place to live as other areas in the state or region. But comparatively speaking, if you want this lifestyle and you want these transportation options, it is more affordable to live here than DC and then Arlington and Old Town Alexandria. So I think it's really, that's an avenue for us to attract young people living here and to start creating those livable spaces and basically neighborhood communities that are nodes from DC that you can have your Monday through Friday, like, oh, I can go to Mosaic and I can do this fun stuff, but then on Saturday I can hop on the metro and go into into DC and enjoy that, bigger city lifestyle while being able to afford, hopefully, a place in Fairfax. So, I also see that as a great opportunity for Fairfax County.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like Fairfax, like it bridges the gap, between like the suburbs and like, outdoor spaces kind of, and the city.
Mhm.
So it's a good balance. I completely agree. It's more affordable, but you get the best of both worlds.
Yes. And I think, the last thing that I would say about this is just placemaking is really what, I mean, when I was looking for where I want to live, I'm looking at the placemaking. I want to be near enough to somewhere cool. I don't want to have to drive 30 minutes or like take a 30-minute train just to get to somewhere if I want a happy hour on a Wednesday night with an outdoor area and I can meet friends at. So I just think placemaking is where we're a little behind the eight ball, but we're slowly catching up to the areas like DC and Arlington. So
Can you define what placemaking means?
yeah, so essentially creating an attractive and vibrant streetscape and area that has commercial spaces, has open spaces, basically an area that you want to on the ground level that you can spend time in and has an identity. I loved in Fairfax County, I love to use Reston Town Center. I like to use Mosaic, Kingstown Town Center, even. There's just those little nodes where you can kind of park your car or take public transit and then bop around and do some shopping, get something to eat or drink. There's, a little park here or there. So something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
like town
Yeah, I
center
totally
and
agree. I think that's really important.
streetscape and amenities, something like that. Okay. All right. How do we feel about this one? I know that it's kind of like a big ticket item, so it's hard to like get our arms wrapped around it, but I think that's a good start.
I agree.
So,
How
all right,
many
the next
are there? 6 or 7?
six.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next one, is there a connection between the pattern of the built environment and the quality of life for residents, young adult residents in particular? If so, what might explain this? It kind of gets at I think probably what I was just trying to get at with the streetscape and those creating that sense of place that's attractive and that has all the components instead of more of the suburban sprawl that a lot of Fairfax has been historically developed with. But
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's very similar to some of our answers to number one. We talked about the accessibility and um, the lifestyle and all that. And I think that's very related.
oh my gosh, I can't spell imp.
Okay.
Even Word doesn't know what I'm trying to
Whenever
say.
you're sharing your screen and typing, that's when like suddenly you just don't know how to do any of it.
It's like the pressure's on. Mentioned above. Yeah, I mean, these qualities can help, can make Fairfax desirable as a place to live, work, and visit for young people. Like when you ask a 22-year-old out of college, what are you looking for in your next apartment? Like, don't think about money, like, don't think about, any potential barriers, but they're probably going to come up with something like, I want an apartment that, a nice apartment that I can go downstairs, I can walk out, I can get on a metro, at least in this area, I get on a metro, I can walk down the street, like I said, to grab a bite to eat or walk to my grocery store if I need to get ingredients really quickly and have some fun amenities around it. So
Yes, I like that. Sorry, is fun amenities, did you say that as one word or as 2 words?
I blended them. Fun amenities.
Right. So I was gonna say, if that's a word, like that's a great word. Can we make amenities like
Fun amenities.
because I mean I
Yeah.
do think that's very important. Like that goes back to the whole lifestyle thing, right?
Yeah, right. A lifestyle. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if we want to go into this now. I haven't read the questions, by the way, so we're both coming at these blind, and I don't know what the next ones are. But I do feel like this is definitely a generational change as well. A lot of our parents and our parents' parents grew up on the American dream of having a big house on a half acre of land, with their couple of cars that everyone has and drives to work. So there was a shift, and now our generation isn't quite looking for that. So we have to shift our way of thinking about transportation and the places that we build and create in order to accommodate the us's, the generation that now is buying houses. So
Yeah, I completely agree. And I've only read question number 3 in advance. And I think this is very relevant for question number 3.
So each time we're wrapping up, it's like I guess we're coming up with ideas that are in the next question.
The questions were done in the right order. So thank you, Graham, or
shout out to Graham. Yeah. So this can be our warm up for the next question.
Exactly.
Generational desire to no longer looking for more suburban. American dream. Sprawl, wanting more condensed and fun places to live with accessible transportation options. Okay, what are the consequences of the, oh, did you want to add anything else to 2? I'm sorry.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. What are the consequences of the status quo? Are there equity considerations? What are the potential effects of recommending certain strategies over others?
Yeah, I think that's a good question.
I
have a few thoughts.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think kind of, what's the word? Adding on to what you just said, about generational shifts. I mean, the consequences of the status quo would be, as we, move forward, there'll be fewer and fewer young people. And obviously, as time goes on, that would be a smaller population for Fairfax County if it's not being populated. But of course, in terms of equity considerations, you could also argue that, if Fairfax County decides to completely revolutionize itself as a new, hip, placemaking, like young person jungle, if you will, then that could, isolate another generation or, the people that, grew up here. So I think it's very important that we find the balance, and we need places that, I think it's really important to find the mixed, have the mixed use kind of places. I think placemaking sounds like the exact term that I'm, also thinking, to, appeal to the younger people, but also to kind of keep the personality of Fairfax County as well, find a way to, we have to do both. But I also think, and this might be going into something else, but I think another thing to consider is environmental concerns too, which is really big with younger people. We've got all these giant parking lots and, shopping centers and, roads. And it's very much a car-friendly county, which is to some degree great in the sense that DC isn't car-friendly. It's not really, it's not really the future, I think, in terms of our generation and our preferences and where the world is going in terms of environment.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, and then I guess the only thing is I think that's good for now from me. What are your thoughts?
No, I completely agree with what you're saying. With the project, the ZMOD project, we've obviously seen a lot of the, the balancing act and maintaining the stable residential character of neighborhoods, especially older neighborhoods, not disrupting for the people that is what they want, and they're not in our generational shift mindset. But then also recognizing that if we continue to build and develop like that, we have a housing crisis, we have a housing shortage, so we can't keep putting up big houses on half-acre lots. That's just not practical. So that, I think that's one of the consequences of the status quo. I'm going to word vomit and then I'll write some things down. I think that's one of the consequences if we keep building like we've built before, and if we keep expanding 66 and 495, we're going to run out of space, and it's not going to get any better. So I think that's one of the consequences where we have to find, again, a balancing act. And I think that leads into the equity considerations too, because anytime you're redeveloping, there's the fear of gentrification and pushing out residents who no longer can afford to live or have their businesses in these places that they've been for years and years. So I think that's a very real issue that it's hard to find a solution to. So just keeping that in mind and making sure that all of the voices are at the table, the younger generations, the historically underrepresented generations, the older generations, just everyone needs to be there instead of just one group. So I'm going to try and write some stuff down.
Yeah, I have another thought, but I'm going to wait for you to type that down. And you said about the housing crisis.
Housing crisis. Yep, housing crisis, equity, mindful of gentrification, and making sure all voices are at the table during decision-making process. Oops. All right. You have another thought?
Yeah, my thought is, going off of what you were saying about, we can't keep just expanding 495 and 66 to make room for additional, population boom, is something that I'm mindful of. And I mean, you're certainly more of an expert on this than me, so please chime in if I'm wrong. But my perception is that a lot of times when, countries, cities, counties, whoever are making decisions regarding transportation and urban planning, they're looking to solve problems now. But by the time that it's actually implemented, 5 years from now, there's, it's not enough, right? And so I think, like, in terms of the consequences of the status quo and the potential effects of recommending certain strategies over others, is like I really would like, Fairfax to be looking forward to, like, what do we need to be in 10 years, and to do it now. And it might be harder, politically, or to get it across the line now, or to, convince people for the need for it now. But I, to your point, like, if we keep expanding 66, like, the number of people are going to keep increasing, but
Right.
start like bulldozing people's homes so that way we can have more lanes. Like, that's clearly not an effective use of our space or our money. And so, if we're able to look further down and come up with a plan now, in terms of this, then I think we'll be much more effective and better off, and more attractive as well to to young people. And I think that's also where the whole balance of mix of appealing to the young and the generations comes in too, because we don't want to gear too much towards one or the other, because if we gear too much to the older generation, well, in 10 years the younger generation is going to be like the majority, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's just getting that mix, that balance.
I think that's really important, and that can be our role, because right now there is no there's a very small voice from our generation, so even entering the conversation is a huge step forward. I'm going to actually save this document. I realized that I hadn't saved it to my desktop yet, so I'm going to do that really quickly so all of our hard work doesn't just disappear.
Phew. Yes, please.
I was like, ooh. All right. So the next question: what are challenges and opportunities associated with urban planning and transportation that impact the retention and attraction of young adults in the county? I think we've actually just started alluding to this question too. I think one of the huge challenges is getting the voices to the table. And I know that goes into some of the subcommittee groups, and I know these all overlap, but just young people right now, it's either we don't have the time because we are, crazy busy, working, school, having young families, all of that. And it's not the priority. The priority is just getting through the day at this point, where the older generations or other, socioeconomic statuses groups, they have the time and the luxury to be able to participate. So I think that's one of the big challenges, is finding out how do we capture the voice and how do we provide basically like the means to get those ideas to the decision makers.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I think it's also, I don't think it's just us being busy as well. I would say another factor is like access and knowledge, like, knowing that there is a board of supervisors, in Fairfax County, and this is what they manage. And like, there are opportunities to have a voice in the conversation and to, put your hand up. Because, yeah, I mean, I grew up in this area, and I don't think I really realized it until, coming back. Which means like, for the first like 22 years of my life, I didn't realize that. And it was only, when I got older and went away and, lived elsewhere and learned about city government and county government elsewhere and came back that I was, aware of it. So
it's basically like a two-part. How do we get the word out, and how do we bring everybody up to speed, and educate on the process and that kind of thing. So
yeah.
Now I mean, I don't know if you have specific ideas on opportunities. I think basically 1 through 3 where we talked about like all the opportunities and what the voice can bring to the table, having the other perspective. But do you have anything specific?
Yeah, I think one thing that we haven't touched on yet, and yeah, completely agree that in the other 3 questions, we went through a lot of things that I think, are really relevant here about like, mixed use spaces and, connectivity and finding the balance. But I don't think we haven't really touched too much on transportation itself, only like transportation as part of urban planning. And I think, I think like, yes, it's great that, Fairfax has got, some public transit options, including like, I know there's like metro buses as well that connect people to the metro. But I do think that this is an area that, could definitely be improved in Fairfax County. Right now with the pandemic, I know that a number of those metro buses, for example, aren't running. But even when they were running, I don't know, but I think they just run maybe during rush hour or certain times. And, they're buses as well, right? And we're like famous for our terrible traffic here in Northern Virginia.
Right.
So, I think when we're talking about like thinking of the future and, connectivity and, the environment and everything, like if Fairfax is able to start thinking about ways to improve its transportation system, both within the county, but then also, connecting to the broader DC metro area, I think that would be, a really wise future investment, especially for young people, but not just for young people, right? Like there would be big benefits to all of Fairfax. And I think it would be become much more attractive to people as well. Well, yeah, I mean, feel free to, chime in. I know that, I think you're more aware of this given some of the work that you do.
No, I completely agree with what you're saying. I think that's a great opportunity for the county to, like you said, not just for young adults, but definitely for retention and attraction, getting people here. But then once they get here, having a reason to stay. Not, I don't know how many people people that I know that have left because they didn't want to sit in traffic every day, or they didn't want to sit in the metro on a metro that was stopped on the tracks for, where they're late to work again. So, I think we currently lose people to other regions because of traffic and ineffective public transit.
And I mean, you need a car as well, right? I mean, if you're to the DC area and you don't have a car, or you can't bring your car, it's more attractive to move to DC or, Arlington or Alexandria, somewhere where you can get away without having one than
Right,
to
exactly.
buy a car as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a barrier,
Added cost.
I'd say.
Cost creates barrier. Mm-hmm. I totally agree. All right. Let's see. Question number 5. What would enhance transportation? What would enhance? Oh, here we go. Sorry. I thought it was an extra D. What would enhance transportation that would benefit young adults entail/look like? How should this happen? So enhanced transportation, we want better and more frequent bus service.
And I think assessing, non-bus service, like, something that's not reliant on traffic. It could be light rail, metro, trolley. I mean, trolleys are super popular in Melbourne, and they don't take up as much space. You can build them above ground.
And then I don't know if with better and more frequent bus service, we could also put in bus rapid transit too.
Yeah.
I know that's something that's being, I don't know where they are in the project on Richmond Highway, but I know the PRT is coming at some point. So that might be something, since it's a dedicated bus lane, to avoid the traffic issues.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. So that's going to be really great once that is built out in that area. But, right now, I don't know of any other plans outside of the Route 1 corridor. So I was working on a project with, what was it? Light rail? I think it was a light rail service that we were trying to get a regional agreement between Arlington, Alexandria, and Fairfax County. And Arlington pulled out the last minute. I guess one of the guys that was elected, he was running on basically ending the light rail proposal. And because Arlington pulled out, it was key to making it actually work. And Fairfax can, where if it just ends in Fairfax, it's hard to support the light rail service. So I think that's a great regional effort that needs to happen.
Definitely.
So what else?
I guess just first of all, I just want to say, having you say, bus rapid transport is coming, just kind of made, I don't know, it just made me laugh because it's like, it's coming rapidly to, beep, beep. Yeah. I think, let's see, I think I would wonder, can we just add into the question transportation and urban planning? And then we can also list a few things about urban planning as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think this may be really jargony, but like a missing middle housing. So more like a 2/2s, quadruplexes, duplex style of housing that utilizes land area and still provides a more affordable option. I think that's something that our generation would be really amenable to. So there's not a lot of that in the county.
Yeah, that's great.
I also, and this may be going a little bit off topic, but in terms of I know you mentioned the environmental aspect earlier. I really would like to see an enhanced EV, electric vehicle opportunities in the county, and whether that be credits and incentives for purchasing your own electric vehicle, or, I know we're working on getting our county fleet to be electrified and our buses. But if you don't mind, I think I might throw that in there as well, just having that EV electric.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even for urban planning as well, I wonder if there's, I know, for example, in Australia, there was a really big credit for solar panels for houses. And so a lot of people, at least where I was living, they had a lot of they all a lot of them had some things done solar, at least, because there was a government incentive to to put it in. So I wonder if in terms of urban planning, if we're able to if the county can give more credits to to businesses that are proposing things that are, more environmentally friendly, or, even for, existing housing or, built housing, have more
Right.
of an environmental lens on it.
Yes, right. Because, and that could be, obviously we ultimately want to have the the full transit, public transit. But at least if there are still going to be cars on the road, let's make them, let's make them electric. So
Yeah. I mean, I was talking about even houses. Like,
like the
yeah,
solar, yeah.
I was taking your idea, which I think is great, and putting it more into like the housing, developing businesses, and
Yeah.
buildings and all that. Yeah, to be
I
more environmentally friendly and, use solar power, et cetera.
I love that. I love that. I am, that's one of my hats is EV and solar. So I'm working on, it's called Green Initiative. So that's something that we could, once recommendations start coming out, I think our group could be involved in those. So that would
Oh,
be
yeah,
really
great.
great. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
Can
So
we can we put solar slash like environment, or like, so it's more than just solar, right? Like that's just an example.
yes,
Um,
environmental. Yes.
or green, or I don't know what we'd put, I guess environmental.
Let's
Yeah,
do all the above. Oops.
sounds good.
Okay, cool. Let's see.
I guess my other suggestion, going back to what we were saying before, is like, it would be great for Fairfax County to do, like a consultant in me is about to come out to do kind of like a strategic assessment of like, where is the best place to have, like community hubs, like mixed use, like, because I kind of see it as almost like a hub for the community, right? Because like that's what attracts people, and like, people will go and spend time there. And it would just be great, like instead of it being, development driven or something like that, if like we could just take a holistic view of like, okay, this is what Fairfax County looks like. These are some opportunities here to start developing some of these mixed use areas better. To kind of attract the newer generation, or the changing lifestyle. So
Yeah, I think that is great.
And that way,
That's
I
great.
think it's important to do that, because then that's where like the transportation thing comes in, right? Like, where does the transportation go to? Because if you have this
Right.
hub in the middle of nowhere, that people have to like drive to. I mean, obviously there's really nowhere in the middle of nowhere in Fairfax County, but you know what I'm saying, right?
But still, yes, yes.
Like it'd be so great. I mean, yes, there needs to be parking. This is Fairfax County. There's still, parking is still necessary, but it'd be great if people could access it with public transit, or, at walking trails, etc. And I think you and I spoke before about even like the building up where our metro stops are in Fairfax County. To take advantage of, like, why does the metro stop only just have parking lots and bus lanes? Why aren't there businesses there? And why isn't that become more of an environment, a vibrant, like environment? I mean, in pretty much like most places that I think of, when you go to the metro, it's like there's a metro in a place. It's not just the metro, but
Right.
for us, that's not the case. I think that's a
Yeah,
good opportunity.
I completely agree. Yeah, basically using that metro as the center of this, creation of a community and having that vibrancy, that hub area. Love it. This all looks good.
Now,
All right.
I'm getting super excited. So now I'm like, okay, who do we need to make all of this happen?
I'm sure we're going to start just, finding little initiatives now. Like once we get it all on paper, and figure out kind of what we want to do, we can start looking and really combing through, okay, what's going on? Like, let's start pulling out, let's get this person to come talk to us, or at least our subcommittee, and how can we get involved? So yeah, this is exciting. This is fun stuff. Oh, and look, I didn't even read 6. What information, data, presentations, best practices do we need on urban planning and transportation for young adults to explore the topic in order to define the problems further, and establish goals? Who should we hear from? Data sources? What are other jurisdictions, Arlington, Falls Church, DC, Alexandria, doing to address these questions? What could we learn from them? So that's a lot of questions all in one little number 6. And
It's a lot.
I'm just not sure we have a lot of the answers yet. I mean, we're going to need to find out first who to contact. And I think we don't know what we don't know, like, if that makes any sense. So we may be looking at what we've mentioned. I mean, we may want to reach out, or at least think about reaching out to Fairfax County Department of Transportation. I know we had that one presentation from them, but maybe we could have a conversation with this lens and have them like, hey, can you point us towards like what we need to start focusing on? If these are our goals, and strategies, like who should we talk to? Who should we get involved with?
Yeah, I agree. I think to your point for number 6, it's more like, figure out who to talk to in these organizations.
Yes.
Like, I think another one would be, going on bullet number 1, your first bullet. Isn't there a transportation board as well? Like another, like instead of a YAC, but for Fairfax County. So I wonder if
I'm sure there is.
I'm pretty sure that there is, because I think I remember looking it up, and I wonder, we could see what they're doing. And then I would also say, I mean, we talked about the environment quite a bit, so maybe it's understanding like what is currently in place. And then, that would be a good one to see what are other places doing. I just don't know if any of those jurisdictions listed are doing anything better, or more progressive than Fairfax. Right. But I do think we need to figure out who in Fairfax do we talk to, about.
Right. Where do we start? I'm thinking maybe the Office of Environmental Energy is involved somehow.
Commission?
Coordination? I think it's coordination, environment, and it's OEEC. OEC. They're a new agency in the county, and they are tasked with all things green. So they might be a good group to engage with and see, okay, like what's going on? What are the initiatives you're working on? Basically, what's your timeline, and get a foundation.
Okay, I'm Googling them. Coordination, you nailed it.
Yes. I was like, I know there's a C. I don't know what it is. And then another group that I think might be helpful for us is they're within Department of Planning and Development. They're the urban centers section. There's 2. There's an urban center section and there's a community revitalization section. And they're really involved in the different, some of them are involved in the urban areas. So Tyson's, Reston, the areas that are really urban and are developing. So they're working on active projects that are creating these, walkable streetscapes and events, like making sure that, there's like a farmer's market, like coordinating that kind of thing. So they might be good in that piece. And then the community revitalization is looking at areas that are, I don't want to say struggling, but they're reinventing themselves. Areas like Seven Corners and Bailey's Crossroads and Annandale, and they're revitalizing. So they might be a good group for us to be like, what are you working on? Are there design guidelines you're working on that we could help to provide the young person lens?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I'm sure that there's also like an urban planning board as well that we could also touch base with, like a back, I don't know how it's pronounced.
I don't know if there is. They're an urban focused back. So I know we have the boards. The board has their land use committee, but it's a committee of the whole board. I'm just not sure. I don't know if you
I'm
can.
good.
Oh, perfect.
So
Oh,
there's like a Board of Zoning Appeals,
oh, you.
and there's a lot of them. So I'm just looking.
Yeah, so the Board of Zoning Appeals, they just decide on land use cases. They're mostly homeowner changes. So like if someone wanted to do an addition or like a church. Um,
Would it be like the Planning Commission? Would that be?
so the Planning Commission, they just they review land use cases, entitlement cases. ZOD is what they just recently reviewed, and they make a recommendation to the board on those entitlement cases. So I don't think that they'd be
There's not then.
anybody to be
But
knowledgeable to.
there is a Transportation Advisory Commission.
Ah, great.
So that answers that other question we had.
Transportation Advisory, what is it, Advisory Board?
Oh, yeah, and there's an Affordable Dwelling Unit Advisory Board, which is quite relevant to your missing middle.
Yeah. Affordable Dwelling Unit Advisory Board.
So, and I
That's
definitely
good.
think, based on what you were just saying with the like going back to the urban centers topic, I think that could be a great opportunity to speak with Arlington, DC and Alexandria, maybe Falls Church, too. I'm just not as familiar with Falls Church. To see like how did Alexandria, build up Old Town, for example, to make it, what it is today, or how did Arlington, turn, I don't know, like Courthouse, or like Shirlington, for example. Shirlington has been like revitalized.
Right,
Not
right.
there's no metro station there, so the transportation element might be missing, but it's definitely become like a really cool area. So I think
Yeah.
we could learn a lot from from them on how how they got started, basically. Um, so
I'm just gonna say neighborhoods and put a couple neighborhoods like Old Town. Okay, great. All right. Well, how do we feel about this as a good start?
yeah, I think that's great.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, I will see. I'm still trying to figure out, how I like if I can send things, or I think Graham can send this to the three of us. So I'll send it to him and have him share with Denver as well. And then, if there's if she wants to make any edits, or if you want to make any edits, obviously based on the conversation, if there's something that you're like, oh, that wasn't quite captured correctly, feel free to do that. Yeah. So I guess with that, do you want to talk about the newsletter, your board's newsletter?
Yeah, definitely. So this is from the Braddock supervisor, James Walkinshaw, from his newsletter. And I just think there were a number of things that were relevant. And like I said, I did forward it to Graham, so hopefully, he will be sending it out to possibly even the whole board, because, it's got some proposed budget highlights from the, next Fairfax County budget, which I just think is good for us to know. But what I thought was particularly relevant, especially for our board, is the Metro seeks public input on their proposed budget,
Yes.
which, is obviously quite relevant to us. And there's also a VDOT public information meeting,
Oh, okay.
which is passed, but
Okay. We'll get it next time.
but there was one. But we can comment on it until March 11th if we wanted to. I'm just reading it.
Yeah,
And there's a meeting,
great.
presentation on their website.
Mhm.
And let's see. Yeah, so we can share our thoughts on the Metro's proposed budget and on VDOT's public, presentation. Let's see. Oh, I guess it's very specific to Little River Turnpike and Guinea Road intersection improvements.
Okay.
But I just thought, okay, well, that's really transportation related.
Yeah.
Maybe I mean, I didn't have really, honestly, I didn't have time to like look into it myself, but I just thought, well, maybe we should talk about this. And, do we want to comment on any of this and start putting our voice out there, especially like the metro, given the conversation we just had? Or, is that out of our purview and it's better, that we hold off and, meet with other people within Fairfax County first before we, think about like going outside the county and commenting on things that, are larger than just, anyway, I didn't know. I wouldn't.
No, I mean, especially with the metro, I think that that's completely within our purview and probably is very timely and is time sensitive. So I would say that we should probably, even if it's just the subcommittee, if we don't have time to get it together for the full committee of the whole, if we want to weigh in, if there's something that we see that is like, we completely disagree with it or we really agree with it, I think it's worth writing a letter if there's not I don't know if there's a hearing with the metro, I don't know their process. So yeah, I would be interested in doing that and looking at that and very much taking the survey. So I'm not familiar with their budget.
Great. Yeah, so I've opened it up, and so it actually details the proposed changes, including proposed Virginia bus changes. So, that would obviously be quite, relevant to us. We need to provide input by 5 p.m. on March 16th. We can either take the survey, upload letters, and submit written comments, or we could participate in the virtual public hearing, which are taking place next week at various times, with one in particular, Wednesday, March 10th at 6 p.m., focused on changes in Virginia.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess, I guess, should we look over the proposed changes to see what's in? I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, I just open it up and it, it's not like, it doesn't seem like it's by bus. It's not like, here's Fairfax County, this is what's going to change. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm not sure whether we'll be able to go in the nitty gritty, but it might be worth if we write just a general letter about like the importance of maintaining bus service in Virginia, or something kind of like not specific to what they're to the exact changes, but just a more broad thing about how, young people rely on buses and public transit, and we need to make sure this is continuing to serve our people.
I think that's a really great idea. So they have to be submitted by, you said the 16th?
Yes.
16th. Do you want to take the lead on drafting a letter, or would you like me to do that?
Do you have the capacity to do that? Is that possible?
I could do it. Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll send me or Graham, or I think you can just email it to me if you want.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So letter.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
To Amada by March 16th. Okay. All right. And then, so I'll draft a letter and then I'll send it to you and Denver. And then,
well, you'll send it to Graham, who will send it
I'll send it to Graham, who'll share it to you guys. And then you guys can provide edits and add additional, information or justification, whatever you see fit. And then we can sign it from our subcommittee, because we won't have our meeting with the committee of the whole until the 18th. So I think that's probably fine in the intermediate, just to do a subcommittee letter. So
yeah, and we can also send it out to the committee and just be like, hey, this is something that the subcommittee decided to do given the deadline. I would be really surprised if anyone opposed it, or but if anyone does, at least it gives them a chance to.
They can opt out. Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. Okay. Yes, I will do that.
Awesome.
Thanks for good looking out.
Yeah, this was great. I feel like, I definitely feel like excited and, energized to make this happen. So thanks for thanks for facilitating and, leading the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we have 2 minutes to spare, so look at us on time as well, without even being sticklers for time. So go us. So
Yes.
so look out for that and for this letter, or not the letter, the notes I'll have Graham distribute to you guys as well. So
Great. Sounds good.
all right. All right. Well, great seeing you, Sarah. I hope you have a lovely evening.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.